Hello, everybody. My name is Hannah Legree, and I'm running for City Council in the 3rd District here in Lexington, Kentucky. And we are reaching out and talking to people about issues that are important to the 3rd District and to Lexington as a whole. And I want to just start by welcoming and thanking Lieutenant Newman for being here today and to be a part of our conversation around public safety, community-based resources, the bike police unit, and sharing a little bit more about how the public can learn about the range of work that the police force does in our city and in our county. So I want to remind people that if they have questions, they can submit them to us and we will respond in the comments. And I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. First and foremost, thank you, Lieutenant Newman, for being here. I would love for you to share more information about what you do and your story and how you got into this line of work. So let's go ahead.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Jackie Newman, and I'm a lieutenant for the Lexington Police Department. And I've been with the department now going on 17 years, which I can't believe. But yeah, almost 17 years with Lexington Police Department. It's been wonderful. I've gotten the opportunity to work several different places, ranging from patrol to some specialized units. And right now, I have the privilege of working in the special operations section. So right now, I'm over the bike unit, which you'll see downtown. And then we also have our clear unit, which are our neighborhood officers who go out and take our neighborhood complaints.
Great. I know right before we launched into this conversation, we were talking a little bit about how the pandemic has changed your work. Mm-hmm. But before we get into that conversation, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your unit within the police force and what your work looks like on a daily level.
Sure. So as with many other professions, our work is a little bit different right now. Mm-hmm. So I'll start with the bike unit, who is, primarily the unit that we'll be talking about today. We have 13 personnel who work in the bike unit, and that includes one supervisor. And generally, they work in the downtown area. So we found that the easiest mode of transportation downtown to be able to efficiently answer calls for service was to use bikes. So that's kind of how that evolved. We've had the bike unit for over 10 years now, and it started small with just one officer, and it's grown into 13. So they primarily answer calls in the area, Maxwell and High Street, down over to 3rd Street, and then, that Main and Vine area, kind of that whole downtown corridor. They are able to respond to calls much more quickly than, say, our patrol officers and vehicles. So, right now we haven't seen, our downtown is different right now. It's an entirely different. We're used to seeing the hustle and the bustle and, people down there during the day and sitting out and enjoying food. And it's a little bit different. We're getting back to our new normal. But, our officers have still been there through this pandemic. And, through anything, our officers are still downtown working, and they're still taking calls and helping out, providing resources to those who live downtown. And our clear unit is also a specialized unit that works for me. And the clear unit is a neighborhood unit, and they go into neighborhoods and take calls for service, and they also deal with neighborhood complaints. So a lot of times we'll have complaints in neighborhoods that maybe are a little too in-depth for a patrol officer to go out, take the call and leave. It may be an ongoing situation. So those officers are able to go into the neighborhood. They're able to find out what the root cause of the problem is, and then work to kind of remedy whatever that problem is. So they're two very unique units that work for me that really do a great job.
It sounds like a big part of what both of these units do involves relationship building
Absolutely.
and connecting with people potentially over the longer term. So when we're thinking about the bike unit, for example,
Uh-huh.
what kind of relationship do the bike unit folks build with people who are out on the street on a regular basis, in terms of just like people you see consistently downtown, and business owners, in terms of wraparound services? I know you said that they can respond very quickly,
Right.
but how do services maybe look a little bit different as well?
Right. And that's a good point. Our bike officers generally see the same people on a daily basis, whether that be the business owners, whether that be those who are downtown, who may frequent the area. They have those good relationships with the people, the citizens who work and live downtown. So it's a little bit different to run into someone knowing they may need some help, whether they're homeless, don't have somewhere to stay. They see an officer, the officer may say, hey, let's get you some help.
Mhm.
Is there something we can do? It's a little bit different for our bike officers because they may be seeing them 2 or 3 times a day, several times a week, and can really build that relationship to where a lot of times we can find out what those root problems are,
Mhm.
which is really instrumental in fixing a lot of problems. And I've seen some really good success from those relationships. The relationships with the business owners downtown, a lot of times the business owners will even call our officers directly and say, hey, we're having this issue. And the officers are able to kind of have that relationship where they get those frequent phone calls from business owners, from council members, even from those who may not live downtown but may work down there. And it really is, it's a great thing to have those relationships in place.
Yeah, I would imagine that makes a really big difference when you're figuring out what are the root causes, what are some themes that we're encountering repeatedly, and thinking about those ideas.
Mhm.
W- With your work on the ground, what are the concerns within the third district, or conversations that you all find yourselves having repeatedly within downtown, within the third district? What are some things that you're noticing? And I guess that could say in this current moment or in a general sense.
So I would say generally we kind of see the same issues. We see a higher number of Lexington's homeless that live or stay in the downtown area. We do work very closely with several of our community partnerships,
Mhm.
and that helps us to be able to provide those resources. So, maybe we're able to see someone who we know, abuses alcohol.
Mhm.
Well, if we see them on a day when they're sober, maybe we can say, look, we have these resources. We can get you to the people you need to get you some help. And seeing and having those relationships, being able to call someone at 2 in the morning and say, we need some placement, we need help getting this person to a rehab. um, when we have those relationships is when we're able to really help people.
Mhm.
We may be able to see them on a daily basis. We may be able to talk them into it. But really, without those community partnerships, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the good work that I see downtown. So, I think that's a big part of it, is being able to have those good community relationships so that, when someone needs help, we're able to provide that help because we know exactly who to call.
And thinking about, citizens, you mentioned citizens and council members connecting with either one of your units actually. Um, how do you think, how can they best communicate with you all? Or what is some methods of communication that are most effective in sharing information, being transparent, and in them understanding your role also?
Right. So we encourage any citizen who might want to know more about the Lexington Police Department in general.
Mhm.
We have a Citizens Police Academy, so that's on hold right now for a little bit, but it will get back up and going, and that kind of gives a little bit more insight into what the police department does. And I think it's a really good tool to be able to provide citizens kind of a um, our perspective, the police's perspective on, what different things that we deal with. So that's a really great resource we have. For any council members or community members, you're more than welcome to come do a ride along with one of our officers that works downtown. Our ride along program is great. You can get on our website and just request a ride along form and ride with an officer for a night. And that's how I got, into this job. I was actually looking into going into law, but didn't really know what I wanted to do, and went on a ride along with an officer, and it was just completely different, because you expect what you see on TV, and it's not. It's not it. So,
What was different? What stood out to you?
I'll say this: when I went on a ride along, I was in high school and looking at colleges. And the one thing, we did not go on a single dispatch call the entire day. It was a very small city that I went on a ride along with. But the entire day we were busy, because we went to businesses and checked in with managers. We went to houses for people who were on vacation and just check their houses, which is also a service that we provide here in Lexington. We drove around, and, he kind of showed me the areas of town that were, that had problems, and some of the issues that, had gone on. So it was a very different perspective of my hometown that I saw that day. And even though there wasn't a single problem that the police needed to respond to, it was a very different insight into what the police did. It wasn't TV. It wasn't, arresting people all day. And, that's part of policing is, sometimes you do have to take people to jail, but the bigger part of policing is that sometimes you can help someone. And I saw a lot of that, and I thought, this is something I want to do because I want to help people. And I think, that a lot of that good, the good things that come out of policing come out of, our clear unit and our bike unit, who are downtown and really able to help people.
It sounds like connecting with people, having a lot of variability in what you're doing, helping people, building relationships, like those are very meaningful parts of the work that you do for yourself and then within the community. Yeah, that sounds rewarding.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. It really is.
And thinking about the Citizens Academy, I know you said it's on hold, but if someone were to go, maybe in the past or in the future, what kind of activities would they engage with? Like,
Sure.
tell me more.
Yeah. So generally they hold a meeting in the evenings. And when you're a part of the Citizens Police Academy, so every week is kind of a different theme. So one week you may have emergency driving, so that you can see how officers learn and do emergency driving, and how that can be challenging at some points. We have our canine officers who come by and do demonstrations. Our mounted patrol also does demonstrations. There's different ways to be engaged with the police department. We hold kind of some internal celebrations every year that they can kind of meet different officers and engage in those. But every week is a different theme. So there's a different unit that's coming and talking to you about what they do. And it's really interesting. And I think a lot of times people think, when you're a police officer, there's just patrol. You're just going out and taking calls. And what the police academy is teaching a lot of the citizens is, that's not the only thing we do. We have a lot of community events, a lot of officers who, work in the community and do different things. And there's just so many, different avenues that you can go to as a police officer, and even detective work. Like I said, you can get paid to come and play with horses or dogs, or I mean, it's just amazing. We have so many great things and great opportunities here in Lexington, and that's what the Citizens Police Academy is for, is just to show you those amazing things we have here.
It sounds like there's a lot of variability in what you can do once you get involved with the police force.
Yes.
How did you end up saying, that you wanted to be a bike officer? Like how was your route to get there?
Yeah. So the Clear unit, the bike officers were originally part of our Clear unit, which formed in 2006. And at that time, I was an officer, and I was one of the officers who was chosen to be part of that unit initially. So I worked in the unit as an officer. I came back as a sergeant. And then as a lieutenant, this opportunity, arose again, where there was an opening in Clear in the bike unit, who now are large enough that they're actually two separate units, which is wonderful. So when the opportunity arose to come back to the unit, I have a lot of pride in what they do. And I really I feel like, this is where I belong. So it was a really great opportunity that came along, and I couldn't pass it by.
And with your all's training, people, this is kind of a personal question. I'm interested in this. With your all's training with the bike unit, are there a special agility tests you have to do? Are there, do you have to do a different kind of higher level of fitness test? I mean, tell me a little bit about how one would qualify, or do you get in and then you have to train? What?
Right. So we have a 40-hour course that you have to take to be certified as a bike officer.
Okay.
So it's 40 hours. We do classroom and some classroom, but most of it is practical. So it's going out. We actually have officers who are certified to teach it, who go out and teach the course. It's very physically demanding. Like I said, it's 40 hours of riding, and near 40 hours of riding. And there is a higher expectation for the level of physical fitness for our bike officers. They are riding every day. They'll ride, it'll be 30 degrees outside and they're out riding. They love it so much that you'll see them out when it's freezing cold and think that they're absolutely crazy. But they ride as much as they possibly can, unless the weather's really bad. So yes, to your question, we do have, that course that we offer, and we have patrol officers too who take it. So we do have some patrol officers who are certified and can take that, and do it as part of their patrol duties. But yes, those officers that's their full-time duty to be on the bikes. We do have a higher expectation of physical fitness for those officers.
Yeah, I could imagine. So, well, thank you for answering that question. You have a bike in the background, so I was thinking about it, what does it take? So we've talked about, some of the wraparound services you all help with, about community connections, how to best serve some community members that you may see repeatedly and make sure that they get taken care of in a variety of different ways, and about helping people and supporting them. I want to make sure that we cover anything. Are there any other things that you'd like to mention, any initiatives or any things that we haven't talked about yet that you wanted to share?
I don't think so, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to, talk to your viewers and just let them know, sometimes you may run downtown and just see an officer on a bike. They look a little bit different. They have a blue uniform on and black pants. So it's a little bit different look. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share what those officers do, and, the importance that we as Lexington Police Department stress on having good relationships, especially with our council members and our citizens and business owners. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to share this with you.
Well, thank you for coming on and for for talking to us today. And I want to remind everybody this is a community-based conversation. It's not an endorsement. It's a way for us to share information. And I'm really thankful, Lieutenant Newman, that you were able to be here today and to share more information. And we may put some links down in the chat about your force and the CLEAR unit, the bike unit, to make sure people can learn a little bit more. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much again.
Thank you.